The Cold War was a war. It's Melinda, Ralph, Anisha, and Genesis.
The Cold War was a war that included events like the Berlin Wall, the Vietnam War, and the Hungarian Revolution. A war means soldiers that are armed and equipped for war. In the Berlin Wall, guards stood ready for war towards anyone who rebelled. But violence wasn't necessarily used. Similarly, the Hungarian Revolution included tanks being taken into Hungarian territory, showing that the men were ready for war. But it didn't necessarily mean that they needed to be violent. In the Vietnam War, there was violence, proving that one aspect of the war was violent.
According to the history learning site, the Hungarian Revolution was when Stalin trapped all the Hungarian people in Hungary, and said that they couldn't get out because they refused to become communist. And the milk, the Berlin Airlift, was when Stalin trapped half of West Berlin in Berlin because they refused to become communist and they were a democracy and agree with the United States side. And it was a war because he forced them to stay and they were armed to prevent things happening and they tried to escape.
My opponents may argue that the Cold War wasn't a real war because there wasn't any fighting. But they are wrong because war doesn't necessarily mean violence, as my colleague will further prove. We're done.
I agree.
Snaps for one. We will now hear from the negative side, arguing that the Cold War was not a war.
Oh, what?
Hi, my name is Latay Moultrie, and I'm here to explain to you the reasons why the war is not really a real war. First off, I'm going to start by defining the word war. The word war, based on the Webster's Dictionary, means a physical act including states that, well, I'm adding on that it should involve the death of at least 5 million people. And as you should know, the Cold War did not involve the death of at least 5 million people. My opponents would say that the Cold War was actually a war because a lot of people died. But compared to World War II, less than 3 million people died within the war. Compared to World War II, this would be a small dispute. If you are not aware of what the word dispute means it's simply a physical contact that is between two or more people or places. Yeah.
I would also like to add on that a war, to phrase it in my words, technically means two nations or two sets of soldiers on the battlefield killing each other. When the Cold War, all that was happening is the U.S. was sticking up for the countries that liked capitalism, and the USSR was standing up for the countries that liked communism. For example, in Cuba, when Castro admitted that he liked communism, Russia brought in weapons, food, they basically gave them power, and missiles to aim at the U.S. So that's technically not a war. That's just them supporting the countries that like their system of government.
Latay, would you rephrase William's argument and conclude your statement, please?
Basically, what we're trying to say is, and what William was saying was that a war is basically where you set two different sides on the battlefield, and that's not what took place here. The people were standing up with what they believed in, and that's what we're doing right now. Therefore, this was not a Cold War. It was not a war.
Thank you. You will get chances to cross